"It's no good trying, no good at all," said a little cock robin to himself. "I can't sleep and I can't eat. All I can do is to be miserable, and that's a fact. And just fancy being miserable too on Christmas Eve of all days in the year. But how can I help feeling unhappy after seeing that poor little boy getting more ill day after day?" So saying, Master Cock Robin flew across the snow-covered country and perched himself on the ledge of the window of a very humble-looking cottage. Now, if you or I, my dear, had been with that robin, we should have seen just what he saw. And it was this: a very bare room, in which was a little bed, and in that little bed there lay a little boy. He had big blue eyes and bright golden hair, but his face was, oh, so thin, and as white as the pillow it rested upon. In fact, he was very, very ill. "He hasn't even one toy to play with. Oh," sighed the tender-hearted little bird, "and everybody else is making merry round Christmas trees. It does seem hard." Just at that moment, the robin's thoughts were interrupted by peals of children's laughter, and he saw coming bounding along the road a little girl and 3 little boys. They had been to choir practice in the village church, where they had learnt the Christmas carols to sing the next day, and as they came along, between their bursts of laughter, they sang bits of the lovely hymns in their clear, pretty voices, and a right merry little party they were. "Hullo!" cried one of the boys, as they came up to the cottage. "Just look at that robin. He seems very much interested about something inside the room. I wonder what it can be." The children went to see, and while they stood on tiptoe and peered into the cottage, Master Cock Robin flew up to the roof and watched and listened to what they said. "Oh, poor little boy! How ill he looks," said the girl. "And he hasn't one toy," said the smallest boy of the lot again, just as the robin had remarked. Then they began to talk together about what they could do for the poor sick boy. They turned out their pockets and piled their treasures into a little heap in the white snow. And a very funny little heap it was. It consisted of 3 farthings, 7 buttons, 1 marble, a piece of dried orange peel, a broken penknife, a bent thimble, 4 bits of string, a reel of cotton, and half a squirt. The children looked at the little heap and shook their heads. Treasures although they undoubtedly were, they were hardly fit presents for a sick child. "And it isn't only presents that he wants," said the biggest boy. "He ought to have soups and jellies. Suppose we go home and tell Mother." As the children went along, all their fun and laughter left them, and they spoke in whispers all about the sick child, when all of a sudden Tom, who was the smallest, gave a jump into the air and a loud shout. "I've got it! I've got it!" he cried. "I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go up to the Red House and sing the carols we have learnt today, and perhaps they will send out some money, and then we can buy him a toy, and then perhaps there will be enough over to buy some soup with. Come along!" The children scampered along the road towards the Red House, and Master Cock Robin kept them company to see what was going to happen. Now, at the Red House there lived all alone a very funny-looking old gentleman. He was very old-fashioned, and wore knee-breeches and a swallow-tailed coat, and his face was like a dried-up apple. Nevertheless, he had a pleasant smile and bright, kindly gray eyes. "Dear me," he was saying to himself, as he sat in his armchair, "so Christmas has come again. I wish I had some children's faces round me, and could hear their little voices." Now, just as if some good fairy had heard the old man speaking, and wished to grant his wish, there broke upon the stillness the sound of children's voices, singing sweetly a Christmas carol. The voices trembled at first, for the little people were nervous, but as the song proceeded, and they thought of the sick child, they put all their souls into the hymn, and its notes went straight to the old man's heart. "How lovely, how lovely!" he murmured to himself, as he sat with his eyes half closed. And after the 3rd carol was finished, he rose from his chair and hobbled down the passage, and opening the hall door, beckoned the children in, and he took them into his room, and had the lights lit, and ordered up tea, and he poured out the tea himself, and cut the cake, such big lumps, and he popped his hand into his pocket, and gave each of the children a bright new shilling, and then he kissed the little girl, and pinched the little boy's cheeks, and was in fact just about as happy as an old gentleman could possibly be. "And now, my dears," said he, after tea was finished, "I suppose you would like to be off to spend your shillings. What are you going to buy with them? Sweeties, I suppose." But the children shook their heads. "Not sweeties? Then toys, I suppose," said the old gentleman. "We are going to buy a toy and some soup for a poor sick boy," said the girl, and then she told the story about the robin looking in at the window, and how they had done so also, and had determined to sing the carols and try and make some money. As the child finished her story, the old gentleman rang the bell again, and had his hat and stick and great coat brought to him, and as soon as he had wrapped himself up, he hobbled out of the room again, and called to the children to follow him. "Come along, my dears, come along, show me the way to the cottage," he cried, and away they went, the 4 children and the old man, over the crisp white snow, and the robin, who was in a great state of excitement, flew along the hedges beside them, although it was now quite dark, and long past his bedtime. They stopped at one shop in the village, a wonderful shop that sold nearly everything, and the old gentleman bought toys and tea and sugar and a beautiful turkey and many other nice things. In fact, they had so many parcels that they could hardly carry them, and then they went on to the cottage where the sick boy lived. There was joy in a good many hearts that night, in the hearts of the mother and her sick child, in the hearts of the 4 children and the funny old gentleman, and last but not least, in the heart of little Robin Redbreast. He flew home and did justice to a big supper, and then fell fast asleep and slept soundly till morning, when he flew back to the cottage to see how the little boy was. He was better, and was sitting up in bed playing with his toys, and every day he grew stronger, and the roses came back to his cheeks, and it was not long before he was able to walk with the other children to the Red House, and call upon the old gentleman, and thank him for his kindness.